I'm actually going to change the order of mine because I think there's one that's certainly you've been buzzing about, and it's unders involving service academy teams. It's not a head-to-head this week, but 47 Army Troy seems like a lot of points to me. Troy unders have paid out 6 out of the 9 times this year. Army's actually gone over in 5 of their 8 games, but just kind of sneaking past that. But really, the game within the game, we know exactly what Army's going to do. They're going to run, 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 run into a Troy defense that's 21st in run defense, 20th in yards per carry allowed. And then from a pace perspective, Troy they're no jackrabbits by any stretch. They're 80th in plays per game, and Army does what Service Academy does. They're 116th in plays per game. So double clicking into this at home, Troy likes to play low scoring games against FBS opponents at home this season. Total points in those games, 30. So 47 to me, I had this in my own projections at 42, 42 and a half. So I was shocked to see it all the way up here to 47. This is also another game. Troy doesn't need it for the Sun Belt standings, but they're certainly a team that's ascending. I think they have plenty of juice this year. I love what they have on defense with Carlton Marshall kind of leading the way with his opportunity to set the NCAA tackle record, having played, since 2010. I just really like this under, and I think there's nothing better, as Stuckey likes to say, under porn, where you get like that 15 play drive from Army and then they miss a 35-yard field goal. I think we're in line for something like that in this game. And honestly, barring any special teams or defensive touchdowns, I think this was right next to my Fresno play for my best bet of the week. So I'm going to start it off there. What are your thoughts on a Troy team that we've talked a lot about? I know the both of us have watched a lot of Trojan football this year. What are your thoughts?
I love it. You know what I think of Troy and their defense, especially. By the way, another reason I wanted to hype up JV Chadwell and how well they do against Coastal Carolina is because we both know I'm taking Troy in the Sun Belt championship game. I mean, we both know I'm taking Troy in that game. But I love it. And quick update because you mentioned it. Carlton Marshall is officially 18 tackles away from breaking the all-time record. He might do it on Saturday.
This could be it. Yeah, absolutely.
He had 18 tackles earlier in the year against Marshall. And, obviously all Army's going to do is run the ball. So he could break it here.
All right. So, what is your first addition to the high five?
Because you took Fresno State, you basically have forced me into this play. So I want you to remember that you did this. You did this. And I'm going to rearrange the order and I'm going to transition into my gross under of the week. I think my gross under last week actually hit. This is gross. I'm taking Florida Atlantic, Florida International under 54 and a half. Which offense do you trust in this game? Go ahead, tell me. I'll wait.
The Owls, I guess. I think it helps that, just off the top of my head, I could name 3 skill position players for the Owls, and I could not do the same for FIU, if we're being honest. You got Chambers.
That's it. That's literally it.
It's kind of like the old NCAA football days, like, and number 83 and number 81. They're not household names for sure.
Yeah. Florida Atlantic's obviously going to need to do most of the heavy lifting if this did go over, but they're averaging just 21 points per game. They're in the bottom half of Conference USA in yards per play. I don't trust N'Kosi Perry as far as I can throw him or as he can throw a ball. And he's been held under 200 yards in the last 3 games. He only has 5 interceptions, but he has 11 turnover-worthy plays. He's completing just 55% of his passes. And FAU wants to run the ball first anyway, and they aren't really explosive at all. And then Florida International is just inept on offense. They're averaging 4.7 yards per play, 120th in the country. They're scoring just 20 points per game. Grayson James has 13 turnover-worthy plays, just 8 big-time throws. And yeah, Tyrese Chambers is very good, but he's like the only player on their team that would like start on any other team in like the country, basically. And FIU is 5-4 to the under this season, but FAU is the under in FAU games is 7-2 this year. So I just really don't trust either offense here. I think FAU should blow them out and comfortably win this like 28-10. Like this game's going to be gross. I just don't see how it gets over 55.
The fact that I got to bet and win on the Battle of the Bricks on Tuesday Night Action, another great rivalry game here. It's the Shula Bowl, which apparently there was ties from the first head coach of FAU and the first head coach of FIU had ties to Don Shula. So I don't know, not the worst rivalry game name in the game. I agree with you. There's a high likelihood of one of these offenses totally falling apart in this game, which then makes it very difficult to envision going past this total. So a gross under, I like it. It's gross under season at this point.
It really is.
All right, I'm going to transition to the biggest G5 game of the entire slate, and that, of course, is Tulane hosting UCF. College game day should be there. Shame on them. The fact that they're going to like a 3-loss Texas, whatever. We're not going to get into that. The fact of the matter is Tulane is on the precipice of really stamping their ticket to the New Year's Six Bowl. If they can go ahead and win this game, that's a huge step forward for them. The pressure now on their side. They're laying 2. I'm going to lay the points. I think it's going to be an electric atmosphere at Yulman Stadium. The fact that College game day is not there, I don't think will have any impact. You've seen it in their last few games. They're selling out. The juice is there, and it really juices up their defense, who shuts down explosive plays, 9th nationally in terms of explosive plays allowed. In terms of what they give up on the ground, only 3.7 yards per carry. And when you look at teams that like to run the ball, they shut down Keaton Mitchell from East Carolina. He was a shell of himself in that game. And then if you want to look for something close to replicating some kind of similarity with this UCF Gus Bus offense, the K-State game. They held K-State to 186 on the ground, which doesn't seem great on paper, but that's 20 less than their season average. And that was also when Adrian Martinez was healthy. So the fact that they were able to go to Manhattan, win that game, shut down the best unit on the field, which should have been the Wildcats' rushing attack, I think that speaks volumes to what they could potentially do here. And also, UCF, at this point in the season, with Keene playing so well, is it a good thing that Plumlee is going to come back? They're saying he's still day-to-day, but Plumlee, for me, is boom or bust. He's shown it this year in games where he's not been able to move the football and pick up first downs regularly. So maybe if Plumlee plays, that actually plays in the Green Wave's favor, with the strong UCF running game against their strong run defense. And finally, one more little tidbit. Malzahn's 3-5 against the spread on the road. When he leaves the bounce house since he took over at UCF in Orlando, he just hasn't been the same coach on the road. So all these factors together under the key number 3, I'm going to lock it in with Tulane, see how far this magical run can go. Because honestly, this has kind of come out of the clouds for them to be on the precipice of winning, the AAC. So really excited to put my weight behind them here. And I'm hoping that the simmering quarterback controversy for the Knights is enough to, throw a monkey wrench into their offensive plans.
All right. For my last pick of the G5 High Five, first, I want to give a shout out to loyal listener Alec. I don't know if you can see this shirt, but when we hit our ECU money line the other day, this dude Alec reached out to me on Twitter saying that he won money and he lives in North Carolina and he wanted to send me an ECU Pirate shirt so I don't have to wear Pittsburgh Pirates gear on the podcast every time I talk about ECU. So I am finally repping my ECU Pirate shirt. And I'll be honest, I wrote this down when it was 6.5. It's dropping, so take it as soon as you listen to it. I don't like it as much, but I don't care. I still like it at 5.5. Hopefully it ticks back to 6. I called my shot with UCF taking down Cincinnati. I still don't think this Bearcats team's that good. They can't run the ball at all. They're outside of the top 100, and they've been forced to throw the ball a ton. And I'm not a huge Ben Bryant fan. He's thrown 18 touchdowns with 6 interceptions. And, Tyler Scott's pretty good, but they just don't have the weapons and the stars and the NFL talent that they had last year. We said it. You can't replace that kind of talent in the G5, and they can't. They just, how many guys on their team now are going to the NFL? One, Ivan Pace, maybe. The defense is still solid, but it's not as elite as they were last year, especially at the cornerback position. Is Sauce Gardner already the best cornerback in the NFL?
He could be. I mean, basically, he's just ported his PFF stats from college to the pros. It's like, just don't throw on his side of the field. It's outrageous.
This dude was universally agreed upon, maybe Derek Stingley, to be top 2 corner in college last year. He was a top 10 NFL draft pick. And I think he's still underrated. With him gone, it's just everything is so different with this team. They're still good, but they have to play a full field now. The secondary is just 91st in the country in coverage grade. And our boy Holton Ahlers is finally doing it. It took us 5 years for our sweet baby boy to reach his potential, and he's done it. How many
Okay,
times?
I mean, he has done it, but wouldn't
Is,
you agree he's like the G5 version of like Sean Clifford or Chris Ricks or Dr. Bo when he was at Ole Miss, where it's like you're just waiting for the shoe to drop. Like I am. I'm with you on the Pirates, by the way, in this game, but I will be holding my breath that the good Hold Nailer shows up because
first of all, don't you ever use Sean Clifford as a negative connotation
uh-huh.
again.
Oh yeah, because no one is down on Sean Clifford except for his head coach. But yeah, go ahead.
But every year we're like, if he could just clean up the mistakes and really, if we can see the good Holton Ahlers all the time, he'd be awesome. And he'd be so hot and cold, Jekyll and Hyde. He's been good almost this entire year. We've finally seen good peak Holton Ahlers consistently. This offense is 17th in the country in passing. Ahlers is completing 70% of his passes, 18 touchdowns, just 5 interceptions. We mentioned the lack of Cincinnati's weapons. Isaiah Winstead and CJ Johnson are both studs. Tight end Ryan Jones is a great red zone weapon. They lost Raji Harris, which sucked, but Keaton Mitchell is averaging over 143 yards per game with 6 touchdowns over the last 3 weeks. So we talk about Cincinnati. ECU has the better quarterback. They have the better running back. They have two better receivers. And I'll give Cincinnati the edge on defense, but this ECU defense has been a lot better. They're really good against the run, and Cincinnati can't run the ball, so they're going to force Ben Bryant to air it out and beat this ECU passing attack. I'll be honest, I think ECU can win this game, but I'm certainly going to take 5.5. And like I said, I already took them at 6.5. I would take them anything over probably 4 or 5. But give me the Pirates. Shout out to Alec again for the shirt. We're going to raise the Jolly Roger once again.
Finally, an ECU football team, quality wise, that's matching the quality of their sports bar, Sup Dogs, the number one sports bar in America. So love to see that for Pirate fans. I like the play. I'm gonna tail you on that one. I'm gonna finish up our G5 high five with a Fun Belt play. And I know we've been so high on Troy this year, but they still have a team nipping on their heels in the West, and that's South Alabama. They're laying 16.5 against Texas State. Jags have to win out and get some help from Troy losing, but they've scored 30 plus in 4 of their last 6. And it really comes down to Carter Bradley because he's not done a great job avoiding negative plays. He's turned the ball over, he's taken sacks. And Texas State statistically is really lousy in everything except for havoc, they're 28th in havoc. So he needs to protect the football. When it comes to Texas State having the ball, they're 107th in success rate, but they've been held to 14 or less in 3 of their 5 Fun Belt games this year. So I don't think they're going to bring a lot to the table offensively. And if Bradley does protect the football, all he has to do is turn around and hand it to LaDamian Webb, who's absolutely blasting off. When I look through his game log, 409 rushing yards in the last 2 games, 7 rushing touchdowns. This kid, he was a Power 5 transfer. He's crushing it. He gives them stability. And Texas State 77th in explosive running plays allowed. So I think the motivation, the skill factor from Webb, and also the fact that Texas State can't move the football and they're kind of in a position where they're not going to go bowling. They'd have to win out just to get to 6-6. I don't see that happening. So I think South Alabama rolls them in this game. My power rankings call for this to be 23.5. So 16.5 under a couple key numbers there. Happy to take the Jags here. A team that has scared me the whole year in terms of my Troy futures. Troy was able to handle them in a low scoring game, but I think the Jags are going to pop off here. What are your thoughts on the last play of our G5 high five?
I agree. Texas State, they stink, and we saw South Alabama came through for us with our over last year. Or last week. I still like this offense.